I just wanted to do a quick recap of what I showed you on Friday. I will also say that you can't see it because it's uploading. I've uploaded all of the comp files that I showed you in class on Friday. They're all in week 15. And I've uploaded that little talk that I gave about picking an object for Project 4. So what I'd like to do now is the demo. So I have 3 objects that I'd like to demo. I'm going to start with your poster. So I'm going to open the file called mockup. And you can see there's all this information. This is a Photoshop file. It doesn't look that different. I mean, when we start this next semester, you've already got a leg up on this because you've done this in Illustrator. But here's my layers menu, right? And you can see they've written you little notes inside the Photoshop file. So I'm gonna delete this layer because it's basically an advertisement. Now, see where it says edit content? That's where the content goes. So I'm going to double click. This is a smart object. It's an embedded object inside the file. And I'm going to double click. And then here's an easy way to do this. Here is my Finder. Here is my poster as a PDF. And I'm just going to drag it in. Now, if your poster has a lot of, I'm going to pull this. And I'm going to do something non-intuitive. I'm going to put my finger on the Shift key. Because in Photoshop, putting your finger on the Shift key does the opposite of what it does in Illustrator and InDesign. It non-proportionally scales things. And I just want to cheat it out this tiny little bit because my poster is the tiniest bit taller than this bus shelter. But what I started to say was, if you have a lot of gradients or a lot of special effects, just take a minute to make sure that everything looks the way you expect it to look. Because occasionally, placing a PDF, the PDF maybe can go a little funky. So maybe what you want to do is go to your poster and export it as a PNG. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Just pay attention to the details. Remember, either God or the devil is in the details. We need to pay attention. I think this looks pretty good. And so I'm going to close the smart object. And you say, you want to save? I say, yeah, I want to save. And there it is. It's been added to the situ and it's not bad. Something I'll point out, this is quite brazenly an AI generated image. I think at this point we can all tell what's AI generated and what isn't. So I don't know if this is an image I'd put in my portfolio. I think you want to stay away from AI, but for the purposes of the demonstration, I just wanted to show it to you. All right, so that's the first way. You take it in and you pop it in. Let's go to the next one. Let's look at the magazine. So what I did was I went to Adobe Stock and I downloaded this image. And this is part of the group that I'm uploading to week 15. So if you want it, you can have it. Just be aware that everybody else in the class also has access to it. But if you wanted to show a magazine, not bad. I don't know that we need all this fussy folderol with her hand, but I thought it was interesting. I wanted to show you how the smart objects work. In order for this to work, though, I need a magazine layout. So what I did was I went into InDesign and I created a magazine spread. And I can show you how to do this in class on Wednesday. Basically, see how there's a spine? This is a multiple page magazine spread. Multiple pages. See that? And you can see how these pages are facing each other in what we call a double page spread. Now, this is a pretty crappy magazine layout. I don't have page numbers. I don't have anything on the bottom identifying what the magazine is. I encourage you, if you decide to do a magazine layout, and again, we can talk about this in class, go get a real magazine and just open it up to a spread and take a look at the kind of architecture that's on the pages, right? If you're going to do a comp, do a comp. But so here we have these pages. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. I'll do both ways. So I can draw a box and I can come in here and I can fill that box with white and I can send that object arrange send to back. I do that so that I have a bounding box. I have an edge that I can work with. So I'm going to grab all of this, make sure everything I want is inside the bounding box. And I'm going to copy it. All right, and then I'll come back to my file in Photoshop And I'm going to put this on this facing page here. That is, and see where it says your image here? And then there's all this extra stuff. There's all these shadows and all this other stuff. This is what you want. All right. And so I'm going to, again, this is the smart object. This is the mask that makes it shaped like the page. We'll talk about that next semester. That's the smart object. So I'm going to grab it and I'm going to paste and I'm going to scale it up. And again, if I was doing this for realsies, before I started, I would measure this page. I would begin by measuring this blank page and creating a magazine layout that matched this page. So I say okay, and I hit save. And so it applies the curvature, it applies all of this nice shading. So that's one way to do it, and that's not bad. And again, I would pay attention to how my page looks. Make sure that when I copied and pasted, I didn't lose anything. Make sure the blends look good. Make sure the whole thing is looking good. So here's another way to do it. You can go to File, you can go to Export, and you can pick a format. You could pick JPEG or PNG. I'll pick JPEG, and I'll hit Save. Now, it'll say, who do you want to export? You want all of them, or do you want pages 2 to 3? Page 1 is blank, so I'll just do 2 to 3. And it'll say what kind of quality. Well, the Photoshop image is a 300 pixel per inch image. So I'm going to do apples to apples and do that. Again, you might want to check your Photoshop image, and I can show you how to do that. But I'm going to hit export. And when I go into, if I click on the name of the file, see it shows me kind of the file path. If I go back, there's the 2 pages. It saved them out. Each one is a JPEG. So there's the first page and there's the second page. So now, this is the second way of doing this. I can go back. This is the page I want, this turning page, right? So I'm going to double click. I'm inside the smart object now. I can just go like that. And again, I'm going to put my finger on the shift key and do a non-proportional scale. Really what I should have done, I should have measured this. I should have gone into image size and measured this. See, this is the measurement. This is how big I should have made my page, my InDesign file. Then it would have fit perfectly. I wouldn't have to do scaling. Be careful. I'm doing this super fast. If I was doing this for realsies, I absolutely would take the measurement of the thing I'm pasting into. Hit OK. Save the change. See that? And the file is really doing the heavy lifting for me here. And then I could put something here and I could put something here just to make it look real. I wouldn't leave this blank. I would make more text. You can do this. You can do a magazine layout. You understand basic type manipulation. You understand the grid. So if you wanted to show off your images, listen, I would also put the images on the page. Like if this were a composed page, and we'll talk about this on Wednesday, like I'd put this over on one side of the page and then I'd have the 3 images here kind of looking good. But to show them in situ just shows an extra skill, right? That you know how to set text. All right, that's the second one. But what if you go in and let's say that we find this image in Adobe Illustrator. In Adobe Stock. Now, this image, unlike the other 2, this image does not have, I'm going to drag it into Photoshop and open it. This image doesn't have smart objects already. This is just a blank image. This is the background layer, and that's all I've got. I'm on my own. I have to do this myself, which is part of the reason I chose such a simple image. You notice I don't have any fancy page turns or anything going on here. Well, that's okay. Here's my book, and this is an AI file. And again, I can export. I can say export as. I'll export as a PNG and use an artboard. Now, be careful. If I do it as a PNG, the background's going to drop out. It's going to be a transparent background. I don't really care because I want the background to be the white of the paper. But just be aware of that when that happens. So I'm going to hit export. And again, it's a high-res image, so I'm going to match my image. I happen to know that image is high-res. If you have a 300 ppi image, don't save your file at 72 ppi. Make them match. Do a little bit of due diligence before you start doing this. I'm going to hit OK. And then again, I'll click up here on the file name and say Reveal in Finder. And there they are. There are the 3 images. So let me get this out of the way now. Let me get this out of the way. And I'm going to take page 1, pull it in. Now, see what I mean about it being transparent? But that's okay. I can kind of figure that out. That's not bad. I'll hit OK to allow it in. Now, there's not a lot of distortion on this page. The curve of the page is not very much. But I still think I want to do a little bit of work on this. So, it's a smart object. I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and you can see that this says Warp. If you do this with your file and it doesn't, if these are grayed out, go up here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Sorry. Go to Layer, Smart Objects, Convert to Smart Object. Okay, and I can do it twice. It won't hurt the smart object if I do it twice. You want this. You want your page. You want your graphic. You want your homework to be a smart object in Photoshop so that you can do make certain changes to it and be able to adjust it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to do Warp. And so I have this pretty little mesh, and I can use the mesh. You can see the page kind of bows out at the top and down at the bottom. So I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to do too much. I'm just kind of tickling it. And then I hit the Enter key to allow for the change. And then the last thing I'm going to do, because this page has some very beautiful shadows on it, I'm going to come up here to my copy, to my piece, and I'm going to say multiply. Now that's a very subtle difference, but it is a difference. The creative is not sitting on top of the page. The creative is integrated with the page and with the shadows. And so it looks much more real. Let me go get another one. Now this isn't really correct because as you can see, it's 2 different chapters. So I wouldn't comp it up like this. I'd comp it up like I'd try and be careful and comp it up the way you want to comp it up. And I'd also be careful when I put different pieces of creative in. I'd make sure I'm scaling them consistently. Maybe I'd bring them both in together at one time to make sure that I've scaled them consistently so that the crossover from page to page looks good, right? If you were doing this in real life, if you were making a real book, you wouldn't want things bobbling up and down on the page. So I try and be really careful about stuff like that. This page is pretty much straight. I don't know how much more I would do here, but I definitely would warp out the bottom so that it kind of follows the line of the page. And maybe I do a little bit at the top. All right, and again, I hit the Enter key. Now, when I go to save this, it was a JPEG, but when I go to save it, something's going to happen. It's prompting me to save it as a Photoshop file. That's because JPEGs can have layers, and I have added 2 layers to my file. So I'm going to save this out as a .psd, that's Photoshop document, and I'll hit save. And then when I create my InDesign file, I can put this file in my InDesign file. And we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. I'd love it for class if you could comp up one of your projects, even if it's not for realsies, just to get the sense of how this works. Okay, let me know if you have questions.